We always push the chairs back.
Are we ready now? Okay. Okay, I'm the president here this morning, and this is somewhere over the rainbow. This is the rainbow connection on here. So there are a couple of pictures up here you can see later. The one on the left was taken up in near North Bay, Ontario, a few years ago. This camp that my family's had for about 100 years on Lake Tallow. And there's a rainbow there, and over here on the right, Tom looks like he's catching a rainbow here. This was 3 years ago, and Tom on our Thursday night trivia thing. And Tom died 2 years ago. So anyway, so this is somewhere over the rainbow. So way up there's a love and I grew once in a while. Somewhere over the rainbow, skies are blue, and the dreams that dare will come true. Someday I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind, where troubles melt like lemon drops, way above the chimney tops. That's where you find me. Somewhere over the rainbow. Birds fly over the rainbow. Someday I'll wish upon a star, wake up where the clouds are far behind me, where troubles melt like honey drops, way above the chimney tops. That's where you find me, oh, somewhere over the birds fly. Birds fly over the rainbow. If happy little birds fly above the rainbow, why, oh, why can't
Thank you, John. So welcome. Welcome to our last service for the year. Everybody Everybody looks great out there. You all look fantastic. So nice to see you. Welcome to this beautiful building, this church that you work so hard to keep together and keep looking nice and welcoming people in through those doors. And welcome to this very sunny day, which hopefully won't be too hot, but maybe just right for us. I'm Reverend Lisa Kirk, as you know, some of you may not know. And I'm really delighted to be here and to see you all. So let us join together in the chalice lighting words that are in your order of service. Let us join together. Okay. For the lighting of our chalice, which you find in your order of service. Our invitation today, this is the mission of our faith to teach the fragile art of hospitality, to revere both the critical mind and the generous heart, to prove that diversity need not mean divisiveness, and to witness to all that we must hold the whole world in our hands. And may we join in our first hymn, number 360. Yes. Oh, you want to say something? All right. All right, go ahead. I'm sorry.
I'm going to miss you. I'm going to enjoy my Sunday mornings with the newspaper for 10 weeks, so I'm going to do this. I'll be thinking of you. And of course, the ladies not going to be happy. So stay tuned for that. Lisa, thank you so much for coming to do our flower communion again for us, as you have for many years in a row. It's our tradition.
Mm-hmm.
I'm so glad you made that travel down here. How was your drive this morning?
Perfect.
That's the best. Good. And I also wanted to say thank you so much for the honor of having been able to, for 11 years, recruit, train, and hire our ministers and retired as of today. Passing the baton on to Richard, who will do a fabulous job for us. Thanks so much, Richard, for doing that. And I also wanted to let people know that I text Donna every couple of days to say, thinking of you, how are you doing, your prayers, and when I say, how are you doing, this is what he says. Donna, right, who likes to talk, this is what he says. Okay.
She's not very okay.
I don't know what that means. Do you have an update?
Since Monday, Donald has been at the Stonewall, is that how you say it?
Yes.
Stonewall Nursing Home on New Boston Road, it's 495 New Boston Road. He's been there since Monday, but he's having trouble walking because his legs aren't but he says they're kind of rubbery, and they're trying to figure out what it is. And someone is speculating maybe during the operation he had a stroke and that affected his leg, but it's just a guess, they don't know. They're gonna take him to the hospital tomorrow for x-rays. And I think he's gonna go back to the nursing home after tomorrow. So he's in room 116 at the Kidwell Nursing Home, 495 in Boston. And he's with us today.
Oh,
Yeah. He can hear what I'm saying. He can hear what I'm saying. For a long time. We're thinking of you now.
Absolutely.
An announcement here, the tour of the Temple Bethel building, there is a new photo over here of that building. That tour is this Thursday morning, June 18th, at 10:30. Their address is 385 High Street, Fall River, so it's 3 blocks up the hill here. Leonard would like to have some sort of an idea how many people are coming. It's not hard and fast, but if you're interested, could you raise your hand right now? It's okay. How many? About a dozen?
Yeah.
Okay. And he is saying there will be a bit of walking and many stairs, depending on interest. The site is not AC, dress code very casual, shorts and sandals are fine, no gaps required. That's from Leonard, so I will tell him that probably be a dozen there. So up the hill this Thursday morning, 10:30. Any questions?
Do we gather out in front or at the side door?
I think we should meet there. Right out in front, right in the front steps. If we say that, then we'll know where it is.
They usually went in the side door on Locust Street, and there's parking on Locust Street. It's at the corner of Locust.
Yeah.
Okay, all right, well,
And we're meeting locally for Leonard,
sorry.
we're looking for Leonard.
Leonard is going to be the tour guide.
Is that Leonard Friedman? Is that Leonard Friedman?
Leonard Lehrer, he was the guy that got most of the stuff up and running. Yes.
Can I have a microphone when you're done?
Tracy, you have one.
Good morning. As some of you know, I did UAA, part of UAA, I did some community listening with some of you here, and we are ready to have our voting on that. So the top 3 issues that we'll work on for the next organizing cycle. And if you didn't participate in the listening, you can still come and vote if you want it. It's gonna happen on June 23rd, Tuesday, at 6:30 p.m. at the Good Shepherd Parish Hall. So I have a file that's gonna be coming out and I can share that with folks, but that's just a heads up. That's what it's gonna be.
Good luck with that.
Okay, now we can all rise in body or spirit for our first hymn, number 360.
Thank you.
Let us join in our affirmation, number 470. We affirm the unfailing renewal of life. We affirm the steady growth of human companionship. We affirm a continuing hope. Now let us join in our responsive reading, number 587. For those of us who live at the shoreline, standing upon the constant edges of decision, crucial and alone. For those of us who are imprinted with fear like a faint line in the center of our foreheads, learning to be afraid with our mother's milk. For all of us, this instant and this triumph, we were never meant to survive. And when we speak, we are afraid our words will not be heard nor welcomed. So it is better to speak remembering we were never meant to survive.
So on today's music, every piece of music has a great rainbows. This one would be from Caribbean's rainbow, but we also have an old song based on a Chopin melody. The song is called "I'm Always Chasing Rainbows," and then we have the moments.
Now rise in body or spirit for our next hymn, number 315. This being June, Pride Month, nothing could be more appropriate than to speak about pride. Pride, even before the first parades and celebrations, before the word was used out loud as a connection to the gays and lesbians of society, it was there in the hearts of those who came out at night to be with their community. They gathered dressed as who they were in their hearts, not as they were seen in the day. They carried a pride in life as well as fear. The two seemed always to go together. This is easy to tell because it seems no matter what happened, the gays and lesbians, the trans and the bis, and any others in between didn't go away. Through a history of acceptance, raids and raids and raids, immeasurable violence, subtle discrimination, obvious discrimination in housing, employment, and even shopping in certain stores, and tolerance. They didn't go away. Being gay was illegal and still in the books as a mental disorder until 1974. Holding hands of someone of the same gender was a no-no. Wearing more than 3 items of clothing of the opposite gender was illegal. But they are still here. As I was coming out in this culture, and I mean literally going out to the bars, to the restaurants, dancing, playing pool, making like-minded friends. It was during the days when Audre Lorde came out slowly through her writing from the 50s to the 70s. David Bowie and Harvey Milk came out in the 70s. And later, Martina Navratilova and Billie Jean King came out. And Billie Jean King, who lost almost all of her sponsors within one day of coming out. That was in the 80s, not really safe. But I personally never felt unsafe. I had my nightlife with many friends who met up regularly. We even had our own Thanksgiving dinners. We attended the parades every year. I never lost a job or a place to live. And my family, well, they all knew. They always welcomed my friends and my partners, and we never talked about it. That was the biggest and the only loss. In the foreword of the book, Improper Bostonians, A History of Homosexual Life in Boston as far back as the Puritans, Barney Frank spoke of secret keeping. How many wondered why this book needed to be made? Frank explicitly shared that this history provides a path for the newbies to walk on. Hearing about others from the past helps one to not feel alone. At the end of the foreword, Frank talks about Michelangelo and says, many people visit Michelangelo and look at the artist that he was. But later, when some of us find out he was gay, it allows a whole different way of looking at things and feeling proud to be part of that. So Frank really said it was so important to not keep secrets. Now, I trust you all know what Stonewall is. Stonewall Inn, potentially, nobody knows for sure, but potentially was named after Mary Casals' autobiography, which was called Stonewall, in which she tells the story of 15 years in a lesbian relationship which brought warmth and love and joy. Published in 1930, it has been called a self-portrait of a young woman's growing awareness and acceptance of her lesbian identity. The Stonewall Uprising is what afforded me a soft landing. Although there was lots more to do, it finally was said, no matter how many times you break down the doors, we aren't going anywhere. Stonewall was a 6-day and night-long protest in which the gays and the lesbians, bis, and the trans fought back against the police, sick of yet another raid, and went down in history as the beginning of the end of putting up with police brutality. They say it started with a skirmish between Storm de la Vallée, also known as Guardian of Lesbians in the Village, or the Rosa Parks of the community, and an officer. Storm and officer were fighting. And as they were dragging her to the paddy wagon, she screamed out to all the people around, "Well, do something." And so they did. Instead of running the other way this time, patrons, neighborhood residents, and those just happened to be passing by began fighting, throwing objects and pushing the police, and the crowd continued to grow. The police retreated into the inn and got stuck in there. This was the spark that set off the movement of "we aren't going to take it anymore." The pride overtook the fear for a while. 1 year later, on the anniversary, New York City commemorated Stonewall. A surprise to all was thousands of people marched 50 blocks from Stonewall to Central Park. In Boston, on that first anniversary, approximately 50 people gathered and held a small rally. But on the second anniversary, which was the first official gay pride gathering in Boston, approximately 300 people marched. They stopped first at a bar called Jacques, a drag bar to protest misogyny. Then they stopped at the Boston Police Headquarters to protest police harassment. Then to Massachusetts State House to protest legal discrimination. And then to St. Paul's Cathedral to protest religious persecution. I can't imagine how scared they must have been to do this. At each of these places, a list of demands was read. It was 1971, and over the years, many of those demands have come to fruition. And since then, LGBTQ folks have become visible just about everywhere: politics, sports, Hollywood, education, newscasting, the medical field, and places of worship. Every one of us knows at least one in the neighborhood, at work or at church, or in their own family. But still, has it been fast enough? Has it been fast enough? It wasn't until 2020, just 5 years ago, that employment protections were sanctioned on a national level. 5 years ago. So long before that, very long before that, with the industrialization of America beginning in the early 1800s, there became a separation of a society of more well-to-do men, their daughters, and women who were successful on their own. With that kind of financial independence came freedom from the typical household duties, especially for the women. They were free to live as spinsters. Now, when I was growing up, the word spinster was a bad word. But during the 1800s, it was yay. So they were free to travel and live abroad, to follow their passions as actresses, artists, and novelists. There were many groups of these women. An actress, Charlotte Cushman, offered an opportunity for many of these women to join her and live in Rome in what was called a feminist household. This particular group was made up of 4 women who traveled from the Boston area. Cushman, Harriet Goodhue Hosmer, a sculptor, Grace Greenwood, a very popular writer, an anti-slavery activist, and an activist for the women's movement, and writer and translator Matilda Hayes. These kinds of groups who paired up with respect were known as in a union or in a Boston marriage. These equalizing terms showed an understanding of the love and the honest comfort found in these relationships. These women also invented a new version of the party, which is, cool. Parties were thrown in which men were specifically not allowed, and most married women respectfully did not attend. This was the Victorian age. One such party was thrown in Lynn, Mass. in 1865. It was documented as the Lynn Spinsters Party. Over 100 women attended. And one attendee, Miss J.E. Roach, offered this poem. O muse of spinsterdom, this song inspire, and help me sing with true poetic fire the praises of that noble sisterhood, so oft by married folk misunderstood. The married folk have had their holiday, for bachelors and maids, let's all make way. The rulers of the world, the spinsters shall be, the spinsters calm, serene of spirit, and free. I ask you, is not this the coming she? Now, there was a group called the Tomboy Spinsters. It was another group of women who socialized only with each other. They gathered regularly to go on hiking expeditions in the White Mountains. This group was active right around the turn of the century, and it just happened that was just about the time when these relationships began to be ostracized, which I'll talk about later. For the men during this time, the Bachelor's Journal was founded, a newspaper of sorts which bemoaned the economics of marriage and spoke of friendships, intimacy between men. It included adventures, theater reviews, poetry, and this poem called Friendship has never been credited to one author, but it is noted as a sentimental poem from the Victorian age and was found in the Bachelor's Journal. Friendship, sweet friendship, how dear is thy name, when love and affection extend. When the eye brightens with sympathy's flame, when fanned by the breath of a friend. Friendship, 'tis a title for love's young dream, on which the fond mind would depend, while sailing down gently on life's wide stream in search of a port and a friend. As in the female groups, there were many male writers, artists, and actors who lived a gay lifestyle, and some of these men were actually also married. The list includes Homer Winslow, Ralph Waldo Emerson, Henry David Thoreau, Herman Melville, and Herman Melville had an unrequited deep attraction for Nathaniel Hawthorne and Walt Whitman. Whitman was quite a prolific poet with a successful anthology called Leaves of Grass. This collection wasn't looked well upon by many fellows in his circle because they thought it was too graphic. Emerson asked him to adjust it a bit, and he didn't. And eventually, along with journalist Thomas Wentworth Higginson, Emerson declared the work extremely offensive. Edwin Percy Whipple, who was the most astute critic of the times, was quoted by Emerson as describing the collection, every fig but the fig leaf. However, Walt was loved by many, and eventually, ultimately, there was an International Walt Whitman Fellowship born. Most of these men were outwardly in a relationship with a man for years. Even Unitarian minister Samuel Joseph May, who was the brother of Louisa May Alcott, he spent most of his life with George Emerson, both of whom were married to someone else. There was journalist Higginson, Walt Whitman's nemesis, who shared these words about his love. For him, my love had no bounds. I would have died for him. I lived for him. During those times, gay and lesbian relationships were accepted as a way of life. And weirdly, like I said before, it was right around the turn of the century when this began to change. Yet the groups of friends and couples that gathered at homes, at bars, continued on into the 1900s, even though things were changing. These people didn't just up and disappear, but the medical community and the psychoanalysts honed in on the heterosexuals for study as favor from the general public began to wane. It was Freud's ideas that the homosexual was mentally ill or neurotic that became the common prognosis and put gays in the limelight, leading to their subjugation and brutality. It is not hard to understand that many gays began to see themselves as less than. A large faction attempted to live in straight relationships, but many couldn't or chose not to. For them, it meant hiding in fake relationships with a gay person of the opposite gender, or sneaking around, dealing with fear of losing their families, their jobs, and perhaps their life. After living with comfort as an equal person in society, this change couldn't have felt real. But the pride did stay on, and they were not going anywhere. And finally, eventually, it was the speakeasies that opened the door again. Lesbians and gays began to gather together because these venues were secret. They truly could hide. As Prohibition ended, the gay bars and restaurants began to dot the landscape again. It was as if, after hiding for so long, just didn't matter anymore. We're here, and we aren't leaving. There were many instances of women who dressed as a man and got away with it. It's in the early 1900s. Some reasoning is that it was economically advantageous to be a man. If they were caught and sent to jail, the sentence was to get female clothing to put on, after which they could leave and go home. There were female couples in which one successfully played the male partner, and there were many women disguised as men in the military. And there was a plethora of male entertainers dressed as women. A lot of these became famous as legitimate entertainers, especially during the war when people needed that. And finally, there were the ones who lived quiet, honest lives, raised families, and took care of their parents when that became necessary. And it goes on. 1952, the law and the medical community got together and declared homosexuality a mental illness in the Manual of Mental Disorders, or the DSM. This encouraged even more severe and frightening stances from law enforcement, including FBI probes into people that lived suspiciously and police stings any place where homosexual encounters might be happening in public. Raids of parties and private homes, and the very intensity of such brutality tended to bring the GLBGTs together. It raised a common awareness of oppression, gave them all something that was common to them. This kept the fire going in the 50s and the 60s because, like I said, they're not going anywhere, right? It took 22 years for the label of mentally ill to be fully removed from the DSM. That was after Stonewall. Just before, and more so after this, gay liberation took a firm hold. Not because the label was removed, but because it didn't matter anymore. All the people who lived their lives with honesty in the Victorian era in the early 1900s and later when it was very dangerous, very life risky. And finally, Stonewall showed the world what did matter. Pride and fear. Not so old anymore. Sure that we still have it. And with the current way this country is going, there might be more to be fearful of. But because we need them still in order to continue to share who we are, to follow Barney Frank's words, to share who we are with pride and with fear. May it be so. Now's the time to share your joys and your concerns with each other. And let us know what's in your heart today.
Good morning, can you hear me? Because I don't stand up, I'm nervous. So I have a few changes coming in my life. I've been just healthy and taking my whole self for granted for 7 years. I have a nodule in my lung that is really weird. And I'm having to move fairly soon. I don't have the exact date yet. And I was talking with my dear friend Tracy yesterday. I felt like sharing it with my family, but then I felt a little pushy. And she said, "You're my family, and you'll be caring for me spiritually and with love." So I'll keep you informed. I'm sure I'm going to be just fine. I'm just scared. That's it. That's all you guys.
This past week I was Googling we talked briefly last week about the Unitarians being unrecognized by the Department of War. So I was thinking, gee, I wonder what Boston might be doing about this, headquarters. So I was Googling all that, and I guess they're coming up with some sort of answer. But meanwhile, as I was doing that in the UU world, I came up with a story about a guy, his name is James Clayton Flowers. He's 110 years old. He was a Tuskegee Airman. He is the oldest living Tuskegee Airman, and he's a UU. He said before the war he was a bricklayer. He got drafted and he got picked for officer candidate school and ended up as, he said he was pretty good at math, and he ended up as an instructor in aviation, aeronautics, and one thing more. After the war, he ended up in New York City and discovered, he became a UU. It's in the UU world, you can get it online. The interview was terrific, really. Toward the end, the interviewer asked him what he thought the biggest problem was in the country or whatever. He said racism. And the interviewer asked, well, how are the Unitarians doing? And he said, well, they're a little better. That was perfect. So anyway, you should read it there. Use the world.
So I was just thinking of something that Walter and I both noticed in the news this week, and you triggered this thought, Lisa. Ted Cruz went after James Calerico, both Texas Congress, and attacked his like manhood. And I just thought that was such a very thinly veiled, homophobic, and misogynistic thing that he did. I don't know if you're aware of it, but the idea of what's a real man and who could be knocked over by another man, and is it men that we need? Is it brutes that we need in Congress? You have to take a strength test to qualify. So that just really bothered me, and I think it's enacted.
I was really fascinated to learn that one of the attacks on Calerico was he's a vegan.
Lisa, I wanted to say that we're so glad that you brought Bonnie Frank up because he recently passed, and I have friends who worked for him, and although I've met him several times, I didn't know him really well. His personality was quite out there. He was, he spoke and thought, and what he thought was in many ways very, very good. And he did not set the rules, shall we say.
So last night we had a table last Friday. I had my invited table next to us. Beth and Heather had the Unitarian Church's table and Steve joined us as well. It's a little bit more to come here today because it's not known for you to use the proselytize. So man, was Steve proselytized. And I wasn't afraid that we were going to get extra seats or have a Zoom in another room or people, unfortunately, but also he's letting people know that's the last one for a while, so maybe come fall, we'll have some new people. I thought it was pretty funny that we were doing and then he was proselytizing, and that's not normal.
It was really easy to fool as a Lord, just like the ring should be so right.
Thank you for doing that, by the way, all of you, for representing us. That was very nice.
Okay, I can't get too close to this. Donald said, my joy is having the Unitarian family prayers. Thank you for everything.
Thank you.
I don't know if that came across or not, but.
Spirit of life and love, work with us as we support others here in their struggles and cries. May our strength show up for them. For in this world, only are we well when those around us are well. Spirit of life and love, let us celebrate others who have shared their joy so all can dance together. In spirit of life and love, for all the quiet concerns and joys, may they offer what is needed in their silence. Please remain seated for our next hymn, number 123, after which we'll have a moment of silence. Now is the time to have our invitation to offering and sharing our bounty here today. We are keeping a promise of our faith to care for each other and keeping those doors open. With your hearts in the right place, please be generous. Now please rise in body or spirit for our final hymn, number 318.
Please join for our extinguishing of chalice orders you'll find in your order service. As we hold out your brave and loving hands, stronger than you know. Your brave and giving heart, and do not, under any circumstances, let go of beauty. Do not let go of faith and hope and love. We are held within, and we comprise holiness, no charge, and diminish or demean. Go in peace.